we do a lot of advanced media in the sense of filming and animation. The program also offers a lot of internships, such as the one that I'm part of, which is the Ironbound Community Corporation, which usually hands out a lot of internships to our program, where we do media content animations for any video that they want to hand to us, and we can just create it for them. It's actually, thanks to them, I was actually fortunate to be selected by them to actually make an animation that I'm going to present here today, where we're actually going to talk about the environment, mostly the oxen and their impact in the Passaic River. So thank you for having me here today, and I'm going to show you my video, which is here. We're all conscious of the terrible effects of war, but there are often lingering consequences of which people are not aware. In the 1960s, during the Vietnam War, the defoliant Agent Orange was used by the US military as part of its herbicidal warfare program. Not only did Agent Orange eliminate plant life. Hello, I have to introduce myself again, if you don't mind. So I'm Juan Carlos Ortega, and I'm a senior at Eastside High School. And for the next piece, I'm going to introduce my other fellow student, Wilmer.
Hi, my name is Omar Solano. I am a sophomore student at Eastside High School. I was part of the 8th grade program in which 8th grade students would go to Eastside's New Media Magnet program and be mentored by students at Eastside High School. I created an animation while I was in 8th grade about my tour at Eastside High School when my school took us on for the tour at Eastside High School to see if we wanted to go there. Here's a 2D animation. Here's a 2D animation. Thanks to, I'm sorry, give me a minute. Here's an animation I created while I was in the program. My mentors helped me create this video in 8th grade. I hope you enjoy.
Students and I from Main Street School in the Ironbound neighborhood of Newark, New Jersey.
Hello there again. For our last video, we're gonna introduce a video that covers the overall theme of the Eastside Media Magnet program. So, have fun.
Welcome to Newark, New Jersey's Eastside High School. I'm Ogechiku Annabelle Mazaga.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to give another round of applause to Juan Carlos and Wilmer for their help this morning. For those not amazing videos. I don't know if you've ever had the chance, but if you ever get the time to visit the Media Arts Lab at Eastside High School, it is an exciting, wonderful place, and I always enjoy my visits to Eastside High School Media Arts Lab, so get over there if you haven't been. I am Laura Meehan, the director of the Newark Arts Education Roundtable, and I just want to take a brief moment to talk to you about who we are and what we are doing here today. In 2009, the arts education community of Newark, along with the Newark Arts Council, Victoria, Prudential, and Dodge Foundations, began meeting to identify ways to impact the declining access Newark children had to arts education. The Newark Arts Education Roundtable was born out of this planning process. Growing steadily since 2010, the Newark Arts Education Roundtable is 88 members strong. Our stakeholders include public, charter, and private schools, artists, arts and cultural organizations, many of who are running workshops today, so check out page 6 of your program to see what's happening and where. Youth and community development entities, businesses, funders, and state and local government agencies. 2 collective impact grants from the National Endowment for the Arts have enabled us to launch and expand 3 programs over the last 2 years and have made today's summit possible. Collective impact is a phrase I will use a number of times today, and I would like to take a brief moment to explain exactly what I mean by that. Collective impact in its simplest form and in how we at NAIR view the work, is a way to solve very complex social problems through meaningful collaboration. It happens in a number of ways. It begins with a common agenda for change, including a shared understanding of the problem and a joint approach to solving it through agreed upon actions. This would be our mission, to collaborate to ensure that all children from pre-K to 12th grade in the city of Newark have equitable access to high quality, sequential arts education opportunities, both in and out of school. It means collecting data and measuring results consistently across all the participants, ensuring shared measurement for alignment and accountability. Our evaluation committee, through partnership with Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation and additional support from Victoria Foundation, produced a workshop series designed to help members develop organizational knowledge and sustainable evaluation capacity in order to launch a common tool, which you will hear about later this morning. It is a plan of action that outlines and coordinates mutually reinforcing activities for each participant. In English, that means our Arts Peak program, a product of our Professional Development Committee, gives members the opportunity to visit one another's teaching programs on site in an effort to cultivate better understanding of our respective institutions, develop community, cross-promote, and learn from one another's challenges and successes. You can check out the posters we have displayed in the room today to see participants of both the evaluation and Arts Peak programs. It is also open and continuous communication to hear the voice of the many players at the table to build trust, assure mutual objectives, and create common motivation. This is the work of our advocacy committee. In an effort to understand what the community wants and needs, we ask them by traveling to each of the 5 political wards, as well as meeting with arts educators from the district as part of 6 community creative sessions, where we explained who we are and what we do, and listened to what you felt was needed for more students to connect with arts education in your neighborhood. We will also hear more about this later in the day, but one big takeaway from that work was our need for translation service, which is being offered in 3 languages today, in Español, en Portugués, en Français. So please see our table in the back for more information, and we can thank Ironbound Community Corporation for providing us with the resources to be able to provide that live translation equipment today. Continuous communication also includes the voice of our youth. So we are going to hear from more incredible young people like Juan Carlos and Wilmer throughout the day, so stay tuned. We would also love for you to participate in the Arts Ed Now Newark campaign. In the lobby, you can join our Arts Ed Now Instagram photo shoot with Nikki and Tyshawn. You can also use the hashtag Arts Ed Now Newark on social media. And if you use Snapchat, you youngins out there, we have a special geo filter for the day that's exclusive to this event. Collective impact also requires a backbone organization, like NAIR, with staff and specific sets of skills to serve the entire initiative and coordinate participating organizations, individuals, and agencies. I would like to acknowledge that collective impact is what made this day possible. At NAIR, we are small but mighty, and we succeed because of the strength and generosity of our 88 members. We have wonderful prizes you can win in a raffle today, including tickets to see the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, to see The Outsiders at Paper Mill Playhouse, free painting classes at Painter's Palette in Lower Broadway, a family membership to the Turtleback Zoo, a gift certificate for summer art camp, and 4 free NAIR memberships. We will name the winners at our closing ceremony, so stay tuned until the end. We also have wonderful goodie bags for you all, furnished by a host of organizations and members who you can find listed on the back of your program. When you complete our survey on the way out, because we practice what we preach, good evaluative practices here, we will hand you a goodie bag. If this wasn't enough, we will also be presenting a member showcase in the lobby that you can visit throughout the day to learn more about the arts opportunities available here in Newark. All of these things were made possible by our members who care as much about arts education as I do, and who give their time and talent throughout the year. I would also like to point your attention to our volunteers who are wearing the orange flagged name tags that you see sprinkled around the room. Please find them if you have any questions. I would also like to thank our summit committee, who helped with the planning and organizing of this event over the last 6 months. Could the committee please stand? Don't be shy, come on. I would also like to thank Jeremy Johnson and the Newark Arts Council for acting not only as our fiscal sponsor, but as champions of our work each and every day. I would also like to thank Rutgers Express Newark for hosting us today and for allowing us not only to share their space, but for always serving as a partner in this collective work. And so with that, I would like to bring up Dr. Ann Englot, the co-director of Express Newark.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ann Englot. I'm the co-director of Express Newark, and my co-director, Victor Dowson, who many of you know. He's been active in the Newark arts community for over 30 years as the founding director of Algira, a center for contemporary art, and an artist in his own right. We would love to welcome you here today. We're so glad you're here with us in Express Newark. Express Newark is a collaboration between Rutgers University Newark, faculty, staff, and students, and community-based artists and art organizations. We have over 28 artists in residence here at Express Newark, and many of them are participating here today. We have over 15 faculty members and staff members from Rutgers University Newark who participate here with the community members to create this great arts environment. So we're an arts collaboratory. It's not a word you'll find in the dictionary, but it's a word that really, we feel, expresses what we do here. We're trying to collectively express the stories of the soul and souls of Newark. We're trying to transform the narrative and talk about all the positive stories, all the wonderful things, like what you saw going on with the students at Eastside High School here in our city. From our name alone, you can tell that we're thrilled to be partnering with the Newark Arts Education Roundtable to host this event. We're thrilled to have you all here today, and we're delighted that you're going to be in our space and participating, and we hope that you will come back again and again and bring ideas, bring projects, and work with us to make this a more vibrant arts community. But we're here, today we're here to celebrate everything that goes on in our city and to bring a little bit of knowledge about what the Arts Education Roundtable and the different initiatives, the collective impact initiatives, can do to help us all do our work a little bit better. So I hope you enjoy the day here. I hope you take part in the workshops and you get a chance to visit all the different arts areas in Express Newark and see what's going on, ask lots of questions, make new friends, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. I am all the way up, by the way. I would like to introduce our first presenter this morning, Bob Morrison, who is the CEO of Quadrant Research. You can see more about him in our program on page 3. And he's going to talk to us about the New Jersey Arts Ed Census and give us a little bit of a sneak preview for the upcoming fall release of the new census.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Really? That's all you got? It's Saturday. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Much better, much better. My name is Bob Morrison, and I am not only the CEO of Quadrant Research, but I'm also the co-director of the New Jersey Arts Education Partnership. And today what we have for you is a sneak peek at the data regarding the status and condition of arts education in Newark public schools. It was part of an arts education census that was conducted in the 2015-2016 school year of all the schools across the state of New Jersey. And so what we're sharing today is not being released publicly because we're still working on the data. We will be releasing the final report in September of 2017. So at least today we'll give you some information and provide some context for some of the conversations that you're going to have throughout the day. The first thing I want to point out to you, though, is of all the schools that we worked with, we had a 99.2% response rate. That was based on 2,379 schools across the entire state. So this is indeed a census. We're not extrapolating through a sample. We're actually doing an enumeration based on all the schools. This represents 1.3 million students in the state of New Jersey in this study. And by the way, this is the third time that we've done this particular study. We've done it every 5 years, starting in 2006. We did it again in 2011, and then we did it in 2016. As it relates to Newark, what you'll see is the total number of students represented in the Newark non-charter schools. Okay, so it was the traditional public non-charter schools, and we'll look at the charters in a second. 32,000 students are what we're talking about today in this particular study in the, I believe it was 61 traditional public schools that participated in the survey. So with that as the backdrop, I want to talk about what is being measured so that you have some context as to what we're talking about. And what we measure is the information that's provided to us based on state policies. And here in the state of New Jersey, it is state policy that equitable access to arts instruction is achieved when the 4 arts disciplines, dance, music, theater, and visual arts, are offered throughout the pre-K through 12 system. So there's an expectation that you have all 4, that all students are able to communicate at a basic level in each of the 4 arts disciplines by the end of the 5th grade, that they're at the beginning of the 6th grade, student instruction in the arts is driven by specialization, where the students themselves are driving the choice amongst the 4 arts disciplines based on their own interest, aptitudes, and career aspirations. And then by the end of grade 12, students are expected to communicate proficiently in one or more arts discipline of their choice. And there is a graduation requirement in the state where students at the high school level have to complete 1 year of arts instruction in order to graduate. But most importantly is that districts are expected to provide opportunities for learning in all 4 arts content areas using sequential instruction taught by qualified teachers. This is the state policy, and this is the framework from which we're going to look at the data today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is access. And I'm not going to go very deep in any of this. We're just going to talk about access, participation, resources, meaning spending, and connection to cultural community organizations. So just a couple highlights to provide some context. So the percentage of schools offering art courses in at least one arts discipline, blue is the state of New Jersey, green is Newark. We have on the left side the 2011 results, and on the right side the 2016. So you can see that in New Jersey, the percentage of schools offering at least one arts discipline went from 97 to 98%, and the city of Newark went from 100% having access to 93%. So a slight decline, but because of a few schools that stopped offering courses in the arts. The percentage of students with access to at least one arts discipline, here you see that it's 97% for 2011 in the state of New Jersey, and that changed to 99. Again, this is the percentage of students, not the percentage of schools, percentage of students with access. And then we went from 100% student access to 96% student access in the most recent census. When we look at the percentage of schools offering courses in at least one arts discipline, we have 100% of the schools at the elementary level are in Newark. 100% of elementary schools are offering courses in at least one arts discipline, and 82% of the schools at the high school level. So that means the schools that are not offering instruction can be identified at the high school level. There are a few high schools in the city of Newark that do not offer any arts instruction whatsoever. The percentage of students with access to arts instruction by discipline. This shows you, again, a comparison of the state to the city of Newark. And what's interesting here is the first thing to look at is dance, okay? Blue is the state of New Jersey, green is Newark. 9% of all students in the state of New Jersey have access to dance. 33% of the students in Newark have access to dance. And you'll see this coming again and again as we go through the numbers. Music, you see there's a differential. There's a significant gap between the state numbers and the local numbers. Theater is about even, and again, a little bit more of a gap on the visual arts. When we take a look at the percentage of elementary students with access, so now we're just looking at the elementary students, look at that dance number. Just, dance is very prevalent in the elementary schools here, much more so than just about any other part of the state. And then again, you can see where theater, more access for the elementary students, but again, a differential in the area of music and visual art. At the secondary level, or at the high school level, we see things change a little bit, where dance is about the same as what we see across the state, but that theme of the disconnect on music, visual art, and then in theater, surprisingly, there wasn't any significant growth from what we saw at the elementary level. So, what you see is a lot of music and visual art, a lot of dance at the elementary level, theater at a much lower level, but still some gaps between what's available across the state when you compare to other schools. Another metric that we like to look at is the percentage of schools that are offering more than the 2 or more arts disciplines. And here you see that 77% of the schools in Newark are offering at least 2, most of them, again, music or visual art, where it's 91% of the schools across the state are offering at least 2 or more arts disciplines. The next thing we want to take a look at now is participation. And this is the real meaningful one to me, because access doesn't really mean anything unless the students are actually participating. Because that's where you gain the benefits from being involved in the arts, is by actually creating some sort of artistic effort. So the percentage of students that are participating in at least one arts discipline in Newark and the state. So what you have over here is the first graph on the left is the state, is at 74%, and Newark is at 73%. So the participation level in the city is nearly the same across all schools as it is for the state. Okay? Even though there's some access differences, the participation rates are nearly the same. But what you'll begin to see is some changes when we look at some of the other aspects of the participation rate. So when we look at the percentage of students participating in at least one arts discipline by the grade level, you can see currently at the state level it's 91%. In Newark at the elementary level it is 88%. Now the black numbers at the bottom are really important because those are the numbers from 2011. So you can see that participation in the elementary level went from 82% to 88% over the past 5 years. So we've actually seen an increase in student participation at the elementary level in the city of Newark, just as we've seen an increase across the state of New Jersey. Now you're probably going to say, well, why did that happen? Well, one of the big things that happened in 2011 is we were in the throes of the economic crisis. And many of our schools had eliminated arts educators in many places because of the economic crisis, because of the federal or the state cutback on funding. So that's one of the reasons that we've started to see these programs build back, and as a result, our participation levels have increased. Same thing at the high school level. Again, you see an increase at the state level of 10 points. You see an increase in Newark of about 7 points. So even though there's a little bit of differential between the state at the elementary level, there's a little bit more of a differential of participation at the high school level. And I think it's an area to look at is what's happening in our high schools. Why don't we have a greater level of student participation at the high school level across the city? When we look at the participation by discipline, Again, some interesting things popping out. Look at the dance number again. 19% of students in the city are involved in dance versus 3% for the entire state. And then you look at the participation levels everywhere else. Theater is another area where there's an increase over the state. And then you see the participation levels for music and visual art. When we look at this broken down by the individual school level, we can see that, or at the elementary level, you'll see that, again, 25% of elementary students in the city are involved in dance. I think that's incredible. We don't see that anywhere. Not in New Jersey. I'm talking about, we don't see that anywhere in the country. So, I mean, that is, you want to talk about something to celebrate? That's something to celebrate. And that's something that a lot of other people can come to Newark to learn about what it is that you guys are doing here that makes dance so phenomenal for those students. Then you see the participation levels in the other arts disciplines. Again, there's a slight differential between music and visual art at the participation level in elementary. At the high school level, you'll see that we have, again, dance is not as prominent as we have what we see in the K-8 level. Music is slightly below the state average. Visual art is significantly below the state average. And again, that ties to this theme of something's happening at the high school level. We can't tell you why it's not happening, but obviously something is creating a barrier at the high school level for some of these programs. So the number of students in Newark that have no access to arts education is 2,275. So those 2,275 students are in a handful of schools, and that's more than you had 5 years ago when everyone had access. These are actually students that attend the traditional public schools that don't have any access to programs. So real quickly, we're just going to hit on resources, and we do this by measuring per pupil arts spending. So here, you're going to see the spending in New Jersey and Newark for 2011 compared to 2016. And what you'll see is that in New Jersey, here we're showing that the blue is the elementary level and the green is the high school level. So you can see in 2011 that in New Jersey it was $8 at the high school or at the elementary level versus $7 for Newark. When we come to 2016, it's $15 at the state level, meaning increase has gone up in the state, while the funding for elementary schools has actually gone down from $7 to $4 all the way on this far corner, right there. So it's gone from $7 to $4, and at the high school level, Newark, it went from the $14 to $7. So while we've seen an increase in spending in other parts of the state in arts education, we've seen a decrease in funding in the city of Newark. Now, to be clear, we're talking about funding for curricular supplies and materials. It's not taking into account teacher salaries. It's not taking into account capital expenditures. What are the investments that the school are making to support direct curricular instruction? So what you see is there's an increased average spending in the state, but there's about a 50% decrease in spending here in the city of Newark. When we take a look at this based on the school level, per pupil spending in Newark per day, in 2011 was basically 4.5 cents per student per day. In 2016, it dropped to 2.8 cents. Okay, 2.8 cents. When we look at that at the high school level, we see that that's actually a third of the state average here at the elementary level. When we look at it at the high school level, you'll see again some of the same things apply, where the spending declined from 2011. It dropped down from about 8 cents per pupil at the high school level down to now a level of, I believe it's, 4.3 cents. 4.3 cents per pupil at the high school level. So while there was some things that were, increases that were great that we've seen, obviously the issue on funding is one that needs to be addressed. But that also signals that we've got some very resourceful teachers that in spite of the lack of funding have found a way to overcome some of these deficiencies. So just think how well they would be doing if they were properly resourced with their initiative. By the way, the high school spending is 1/5 what the state averages. 1/5 what the state averages. So the next thing that we're going to look at is community cultural partners. And what we're doing is, how are students or how are schools engaging with our cultural partners? 98% of all schools in the city of Newark have a cultural partnership of one shape or flavor or kind. There is one school in the city that does not have a cultural partnership. And we'll be able to talk about that a little bit later. So all the cultural organizations can make a beeline to that particular school, right? Help me, I don't have anything. So what we're going to look at here is the field trips, assemblies, artist in residencies, and partnerships, comparing the state in blue and Newark in green. And again, here is that good news story. Because unlike other parts of the state, and on any measure regarding cultural partnerships, Newark exceeds what's happening in the state. Whether it's field trips, 82 to 90%, assemblies, artist in residency programs, a huge gap between 18% at the state versus 46% for Newark, and then the long-term partnerships, 29% at the state, 53% at the Newark level. So again, another thing to celebrate when we talk about what are the good things that we can take away. And then when we compare it from 5 years ago, so this is just looking at Newark in 2011 versus Newark in 2016, we see that somewhat even, but the increase has largely been attributable to the increase in the assembly programs within the city itself. So the assembly programs kind of went away in 2011 because of the funding cutbacks, but now we're starting to see them come back as a result in this particular data. The last thing I want to share with you real quickly is what's happening in our charter schools, and how does arts education in charter schools compare to Newark non-charter schools comparing to the state. And this to me is interesting. So the total number of students that are in the Newark charter schools, remember the public schools we had about almost 33,000 students. Here we're looking at just under 10,000 in the charter schools that participated in this census. And what we have here is the percentage of all students participating in the arts. So this is the percentage of students actually involved in the arts. Again, the state average of 74, Newark almost there at 73. Significant decline when you look at charter schools. Only 49% of charter school students are actually participating in arts programs. And it's similar to what we saw, actually it's a slight decline from what we saw 5 years ago. When you look at participation by the individual discipline areas, again, you see the dance issue, where Newark, the public schools or traditional schools are doing well, dance not so prevalent in charter. Then you see what's happening in music. Again, charters are below. The one area where charters are doing a little bit better is in the area of theater. And then visual art, again, the charters are below. So by almost all measures, charter schools students participate at a significantly lower rate than traditional public school students in Newark. So the takeaways that I have today is we've made some gains over the past 5 years. We've seen increases in participation across almost any measure. Even though it's not quite at the same level that the state is, we're making progress. And I think that's the important takeaway, is that maybe some of the numbers may not be where you want them to be. You're making progress. You're setting standards for dance. Your engagement with cultural community organizations is really exceptional. The one area where there's some challenges, though, remains in the area of funding, and in some areas, access. And how do we get to those 2,000 students in our public schools that don't have any opportunity whatsoever to be involved in the arts? So I think that gives you some information in which you can do your planning for the remainder of the day. As I mentioned, that the formal report on the status and condition of arts education across the state will be released in September, and we'll have much more data available for you to dig into across the city of Newark. So I appreciate the opportunity to give you all a sneak peek today, and I hope you have a great rest of your conference. Thank you very much.
DJ Kwan from Speech Lab, who's DJing for us today, and is doing a wonderful job, if I may say so. I would also like to take a moment to remind everyone that there are lots of amazing arts workshops taking place. The print shop is open, so you can do a print there and send that postcard to your local legislator, which might be an interesting idea. The Montclair Art Museum art truck is on Halsey Street. The Newark Museum is upstairs doing Native American weaving. We also have some mindful painting happening in the workshops upstairs. So there's lots of good things happening. Check your programs. You can always go out and ask folks and they'll make sure. Also today we have with us Think Play Media, who is here with Igor. They're actually filming an arts education documentary about Newark. So they may ask you at some point today to speak with you and video you next door, as well as you'll see them around taking footage from time to time, and we'll keep you posted on what becomes of that. So just kind of have those things in your head. Again, our hashtag is #ArtsEdNowNewark, so if you're on social media, please use it. I would like to now introduce Wendy Liskow from the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation and Dr. Deborah Ward, who are going to talk to us about the evaluation work that our evaluation committee has been doing.
Hello everyone. We'll just do a little test. Yay, works. So that was really interesting for us to see because that has been embargoed and we weren't able to see it. And sometimes I like when things go, when you get reasons to ask for more. And one of the things that we'll be talking about later in the day is how to use arts advocacy campaigns to ask for more. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing with Newark around collecting data, because I know that you're here because you believe in the arts, right? But sometimes it's difficult to get people to care about it the same way we do. I sometimes find myself sounding like a snake salesman, like, give me a problem, I can cure it, with the arts. But it's not necessarily an effective technique. So one of the things we've invested time and energy and dollars in is actually collecting data that builds off of Bob's work around what is actually happening. And so we created a data dashboard that collects the information that complements Bob's about what the nonprofits are doing, those partner organizations, really detailed information. And we're doing it statewide, but we've been piloting it in Newark. And then the second thing we've been talking a lot about is the impact. We all see it, we know it, we feel it in our hearts, we see it with our eyes, but we don't always have the proof to say this is actually really happening. So we've been working to create a collective survey tool to measure certain indicators of impact. But before we go into that, we wanted to do an exercise with you that sort of gets to the why. Why arts? And this is an exercise we've done with all of our partners, and we hope you'll share, do it with us today. I'm going to ask you, first eyeball somebody, because you're going to need to talk to somebody else. And then I'm going to have you, I want you to close your eyes, just for a second. And think about your first experience with the arts. That moment when you realized, wow, art. And when you have it, just put your hand on your shoulder. Sorry now. All right. And then turn to your right or find somebody, it's church, you want to say hi to, and tell them, hello, tell them your first experience. I'm going to give you like 2.5 minutes. So somewhere in there, share, switch over. Tell them your experience. Make sure you switched over. So I have a feeling you could talk more about this, but I want to bring you back up here for one other thing. Can I ask you to close your eyes again? Think of a young person. If you are a young person, you can just think about this yourself. But think about a young person you love, and think about, why do you want them to have art in their life? When you have it, hand on your shoulder. Okay, and then open your eyes, and can you, if it's easy enough to find someone else to talk to about that, go ahead and do it. Introduce yourself. Otherwise, share with the same person you were talking with. This is why we're here today, and you could probably talk about it all day. I hope you do. But can I just hear a little bit about why you want those people, children you love, to have the arts? Just popcorn it out. To express themselves. Therapy. Healing. To have confidence.
To find meaning in a crazy world.
Oh, to find meaning in a crazy world. Bring it on.
Learn how to give joy to others.
Give joy to others.
Connect with like-minded individuals.
Say that one more time.
To connect with like-minded people.
To connect with like-minded people.
Creative and innovative.
To be creative and innovative. To be human. What was that one?
To feel proud.
To feel pride and feel proud. Okay. Present a sense of peace. Awesome. What else?
To connect with other people.
To connect with others.
Take risk and try.
To take risk and try. Get comfortable with failure. Yes. Someone else. We did this exercise with the room, just like you, and we came up with 150 indicators. And you know, some of these I think really tie into something that Rachel Gosling, was the past executive director of the President's Committee on Arts and Humanities, and she always talked about, the arts are a flower and a wrench. The flower is arts for art's sake, where, the beauty of it, the creativity, the seeing it, the change that you guys already talked about, the peace that it creates, but it's also a wrench. It is a tool to make change in the world. And one of what we ended up doing is trying to bucket some of these indicators into these buckets. Student academic achievement, this is where it suddenly gets more academic, right? Student social emotional development, you guys talked about a lot of that, the healing, teacher efficacy. It's something that wouldn't necessarily come up in this prompt that I gave you, but the idea that if teachers use the arts and their teaching practice, that they become better teachers and have different kinds of impact on their students and their learning. And when that happens, things happen in the school and the classroom culture. There's a different environment where, even as something as simple as having artwork on the walls changes that culture in that classroom. And then we had this other big bucket, which things didn't fall in those things, where things like parent engagement, community engagement, and again, sort of school beautification, a whole bunch of those. But it really was getting difficult to, try to measure 150 different indicators. And so we tried to, for example, look at the why around just the student indicators. And some of these come up in terms of attendance and behavior. A lot of them that you brought up are here: confidence, creativity, cultural sensitivity, curiosity, empathy, engagement, grit, and joy. Grit being perseverance that comes from committing to the arts. So we actually tried to set out to figure out, how do we measure? Now let's not be honest, there is a grit test out there that's probably 30 pages, no, I'm exaggerating, but it's long and not something that you would put students through. So this was not necessarily those kinds of deep scientific research tests for each of those, but came up with a series of survey questions with NAIR members. And I know it was for Deborah, who's a researcher, a very painful experience, because everybody gave their feedback on the questions. And so there was a great deal of buy-in. And we have been implementing these surveys, customized for each organization, for a year and a year and a half. And while we're still in the early stages of collecting that data, we feel that once we have this data, we'll be able to have a conversation with people, parents, our administrators, our teachers, to say, we want more. Deborah's going to dig into some of the data that we have so far with you, and we're really grateful for the NEA and their commitment to making sure that we could do a thorough work on this area.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about data. I'm not going to bore you with data. If you look around the room, there's posters that have quotes that are actually from students and other individuals who were part of this collective impact initiative that we've been working on. So essentially, so for the last, I would say, a little over a year and a half, we've been working very closely with 14 NAIR members. And as Wendy mentioned, we've convened these workshops where members have shared both their experiences, what they think the impact of their programming is on the students. So we designed several collective survey instruments to be administered to parents, teachers, and students. So again, we have 14 member organizations who not only helped in the design of these collective instruments, but who have also been administering them to various stakeholders at their organization. So again, it might be that they're using all of the parent, teacher, and student tools, or they might be using parent and student tools. They weren't required to use all of them. but it has been very useful, I think, for both the organizations and for NAIR as an organization to have access to this data, to really understand what is the impact of arts education in Newark. So we have already collected and analyzed 1,500 pre-surveys and already 1,400 post-surveys. These are student surveys. And these are, it's early, a lot of post-surveying hasn't been completed because we're still in the beginning of June, so we know this number is going to increase. But this is pre and post that we're looking at, and I'm going to share some data with, of 7 of these organizations. And there's a lot more data that's coming, but I wanted to be able to look at the pre and post comparison for these. So these are just from the post-student surveys. Now, these are specific questions that were asked in the survey that students were asked their level of agreement through a Likert scale. Essentially an agreement of strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, for those of you who are not familiar with that scaling. And these are the percentage of students, was 1,400 students, of that number of people completed the survey. This is the percentage who are saying that they enjoyed the experience, that it made them think in new ways, that it made them more interested in the arts, that it made them think of themselves more positively, and that they were able to learn about people who are different from them. Now, not to bore you with survey methodology techniques, a lot of what you mentioned in your sharing after Wendy prompted that, issues of confidence, creativity, pride, connecting with others, taking risks, we try to get to these indicators through a variety of different questions. Okay, so through prompting them, through asking them through open-ended questions, through a variety of actually Likert questions and multiple choice questions. So these are some of the early results. This is wonderful. I mean, this is telling us that the students who are engaged in these programs really, really see the impact on themselves. And I will point out to you that this is over a short period of time. We're seeing this impact potentially over a few months. So the next thing I did is I started looking at some of the pre and post survey comparison. So I actually took the data and I said, all right, let's look and see whether there are gains in the survey results. I mean, what are students telling us pre and post? Are we seeing an increase in the indicators that we care about? Great, they've told us in the post survey that it's having this impact, but what were they saying before the actual program? So what we're seeing is that students are increasing their grit and perseverance. And this is articulated in a variety of ways through a couple different questions, but essentially the students no longer give up. If they have a goal, they're going to keep pursuing with that goal until they've achieved what they want. They're reporting that they like to create things and that they themselves are feeling more creative. They're also more interested in learning about people from a different background. They listen to others more, they like to try new things, and they like new experiences. And again, they're more interested in the arts. And what is put in bold are actually the indicators that when we went, I mean, the short sharing that we just did here, we really did over periods of time with dozens and dozens of organizations to get like this indicator list of about 10 indicators in each of those buckets Wendy went over about academic and socio-emotional. And we know that they're arbitrary because we know that increasing confidence, right, and engagement are socio-emotional, but they're directly tied to student academic performance. But the important part is what we saw in the student surveys is that they're seeing this. The way they saw themselves before the program is very differently than how they see themselves afterwards. And I'm going to be starting to do, with NAIR, we did an evaluation of the Summer Plus program. And what we did start seeing is some statistical significance in that increase. In other words, it's not random, it's tied to the programming. And we're going to be replicating those tests for this data. So these are just some of the quotes, again, some of them around the room, but there's hundreds of these. Hundreds of these quotes that get to exactly what we're trying to see that impact on these students. Talking about going out of their comfort zone, doing things they've never tried before, right? Not being afraid of working with other people, never giving up, learning to be comfortable with being yourself, All right, so this is really, really important and valuable data. It's the qualitative data that helps us understand and give context to some of the other data that's provided. Now, we've also had a lot of teacher surveys. There's been approximately 400 teachers who have completed surveys. And again, what we wanted to do is get from the teachers, okay, you know, there's a residency, or you're taking your students on, you know, to do work at Glassroots, or they're coming to NJPAC. Why? Why are you using this valuable classroom instruction time to have these arts ed organizations, arts organizations expose your children or work with your students? And this is what they're telling us. Well, the reason I participated in this program is it improves their confidence, their grit, their capacity to take risks, their expression, their teamwork, expressing themselves, and their appreciation of the arts. And again, we have a lot of quotes from teachers talking about how this program impacted their students, both from the academic, the grades, the pride, the critical thinking skills, the fact that they're able to come out of themselves, the fact that they're becoming more responsible and motivated. So this just echoes exactly what the students were telling us the impact was. And then the parent surveys. And we have about 400 parent surveys so far that we've been looking at. And again, it's the same. It's engagement in school, their confidence, their happiness. This was actually something really interesting that the parents were talking about, is their child's attitude about going to school and about learning. Their own child was more excited to go to school, to participate in activities. Potentially that program made that child feel that they were winning, that they were achieving. And for some of our youth who don't necessarily feel that in their academic environment, this is really important, because the second they have that confidence that that program gave them, or they felt like, wow, I can do this really well, it extends to other areas. It means maybe they won't give up. So they won't give up when they have a math problem they don't understand, or they will feel more comfortable expressing themselves in a writing piece in language class. So these are quotes from parents. Again, there's lots of these, and we just pulled out how, again, it's about appreciation of the artists, of arts, making them more interested and creative. I love the idea that the students develop a hunger on their own, that they investigate. It's getting to the level of self-efficacy, that they embrace something so much that they pursue it and develop it on their own. And again, it ranges from the socio-emotional and the academic. So again, one of the most rewarding aspects of this as a researcher has been to see change. I mean, we know that there's an impact, but when we're asked to document it, it's all right, how do we do this? And this has been a wonderful journey, and I really give a lot of credit to all of the NAIR member program staff who've actually been on this journey. They're responsible for making sure the programs actually run, and yet they've been given this additional duty to actually, okay, well, can you make sure these surveys are administered? There's some people in this room who know that I nudge them all the time, and it's like, all right, it's time, post-surveying, have you got it done? Once the program's ending? They're extending themselves even more to be able to capture this data for all of us, so that we can make a collective argument demonstrating, bolstering the data that Bob is presenting to us about why the arts are so valuable to our youth, to our community, to parents, to families, to teachers. So it's been wonderful to be part of that journey.
So we had the opportunity during the workshop breakouts out in the afternoon to sort of dive deeper into the data dashboard, into the survey tools. And so there are two opportunities for you to join us if you're a data geek and really want to understand how to interpret it. But also, more importantly, if you want to be a part of the dashboard or want to be starting to use the survey tool with the organization, with students, we invite you to come join us, and we'll geek out together. All right, thank you all. Dance party.